one more. So it starts at 5. Oh, you're right.
That's just half the other.
For dementia? Is that what you said?
Computer. Because I'm like, okay, which glasses am I wearing? I'll notice too if I'm watching, like I'll watch TV or I watch video. I take my glasses off and switch. It's like a minute transition to the change. And I've read that's just part of it. Like, yeah, he is old.
Yep.
Worn out. Yeah.
I didn't believe him that he remembered you,
Yeah.
let alone you remembered
I
him.
know the name for sure. I thought it was. I'm trying to get a visual.
Wild.
Big up.
On this side. Somebody sitting here? Nope. How are you,
Waiting for
Christian?
you. You make a quorum.
Oh, good.
Oh, so we're not doing. We're only doing. We pulled one of the Well, I think we have a. Hey,
Hi.
we've got a quorum, so we can begin. And welcome to the January 2026 Planning Commission meeting. We may have an audience streaming online, so if we do, welcome. I think we can start out with our first item of business, which is election of the chair and vice chair. And I believe for vice chair, Victoria, you've expressed becoming a regular
I have a good
Commissioner.
idea of someone to nominate.
Yeah, okay, go
too.
ahead.
I think Christian Larson would be a fabulous vice chair.
I will second that. And
Don't we need to
Christian?
nominate the chair first?
Well, I guess we have a nomination for vice chair.
Well, I nominate Sean Lamar for chair.
Second.
A second there, okay. So we have, I guess,
Do we have a second for vice chair?
yeah, that was me.
Oh, okay.
So,
So we just vote on both?
yeah. So I guess we can do a vote for, let's do for Christian Larson, all in favor of Christian Larson becoming vice chair. Say yes or aye.
Aye.
Yes. Anybody opposed? Christian Larson, welcome to vice chair.
Thank you.
And then a motion from Larson, seconded by Reed, for Lamar as chair. All in favor, say yes or aye.
Aye.
Yes. Anybody opposed?
Yes.
That was
A joke.
that was a joke.
There was no opposed.
Yeah, it's in the record now. Okay, so unanimous. So I will reign as chair for a while and have another faithful chair, Commissioner Larson.
I've been keeping you in line anyway.
Yeah, I know you have. And thank you to also Victoria too for filling in over the past couple years. I know there's sometimes I couldn't make it, and I was like quickly like, "Can you cover the meeting? I've got some things," and you did. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Victoria.
So we've got 2.1, consideration to repeal community council provisions, ZT 25005. And Francis Lilly, we'll turn that to you.
Thank you, Commission. So this has been a bit of a long and belabored process to get to this point, but long story short, in August of 2024, our city attorney asked for, and we received an informal opinion from the Utah Property Rights Ombudsman that opined that Mill Creek's 4 community councils are subject to the requirements of the Utah Open and Public Meetings Act. And that set into motion a complicated series of actions that culminated in the city council's decision earlier this month to repeal the ordinance that established the formal relationship between the city and the community councils. The city council did not get rid of the community councils, right? Because the community councils are private organizations. However, in the code that we inherited from Salt Lake County, there were particular dignities and abilities that the community councils had that no other private organizations had, that were ostensibly independent, including being deemed volunteers of the city, including having a procedure for how elections take place, and including a formal process for giving planning and zoning recommendations to both the planning commission and the city council. The city council repealed Chapter 2.56 and also intends to repeal provisions in Title 18 that dealt with noticing the community councils of planning and zoning applications that they were to give formal recommendations on. The staff report that I provided you has red lines that essentially strikes all that. We, as staff, were concerned that the community councils, notwithstanding the issues with the Open and Public Meetings Act, did provide an important service to the community in the sense that they provided an opportunity for applicants, sometimes the city, but most of the time developers and residents and interested property owners and staff to have productive preliminary conversations before they came to the Planning Commission. Most cities don't have that. It's potentially one of the reasons why our Planning Commission meetings are relatively calm most of the time, because what commissioners may not see is that after a particularly raucous community council meeting, for example, we would then go back to the developer, to the applicant, and work with them on addressing some of the concerns that were brought up by the community council before they came to you. In some cases, the community councils would provide written recommendations. In some cases, they would state it to us and we would add it into a staff report. Many times, the recommendations that they sent forward, particularly with a developer that was attuned to problems that were brought up, would have been answered by the time they got to the city council or planning commission, and that would be a good thing for everybody. Well, as staff, we understand the city council's position. There were issues with chapter 2.56 that made it very difficult for us to navigate, particularly with the state's understanding of the Open and Public Meetings Act, but also with this idea of the community councils being independent, yet being determined as volunteers of the city, and occasional decorum issues, overtime issues for staff. It was a challenging forum to operate in. And so there are parts about the city council's repeal that we find candidly a little bit relieving, yet we will miss the community council's engagement and particularly that opportunity for engagement. So what we're thinking, as I stated in the staff report, what we're thinking of doing as a pilot project is to hold an open house prior to every planning commission meeting. This would be in lieu of all the stuff that we're proposing to redline through this repeal, because I don't think it would be appropriate to replace something with nothing. I think we need to find something of value to replace it with. And our thought is, let's do an open house first Tuesday of every month, 5 p.m. City Hall. That open house would be noticed to everybody who received a property, or everybody who received a public notice to this meeting would also get a notice in that same letter to an open house. The developer would be invited to participate in the open house. Residents, of course, would be invited to come in and chat with the planner about, or the applicant, about the various projects that are coming before their neighborhood. It's our hope that that open house can serve much the same function that the community councils did, in that we can tease out hot button issues or elicit early feedback that developers and applicants can then respond to and hopefully improve their application and respond to that. It has the added benefit of giving the community councils, because they still exist, an opportunity to come to this meeting as well, and then they can still formulate their response, and then they can send that to the planning commission. Nothing about the community council's repeal changes the city council's repeal changes the community council's ability to send a recommendation to staff that we would then put in our packet. One of the things we're thinking of doing at this open house is giving people an opportunity to submit a written comment. Those written comments, the names will be redacted, but otherwise the written comments will be attached to the staff report. So now you can actually see the community council's letter, if they provide one. Any other entity that wants to write a letter can provide one, and all manner of resident comment will be included as an appendix to the staff report. This might make some of the staff reports pretty long. This is what Salt Lake City does for theirs, and some of their staff reports are in the hundreds of pages, because the appendix includes a raft of public comment. I think though there's benefit of that, because it actually puts it into the public record, and it gives you an additional basis to understand the decisions that's coming to you. In addition, our goal is to create a website that will allow people to look at project-specific information, kind of a ready reference. Right now, if you want to read your staff report, you have to dig through the Agenda Center, and we'll still do that, right? Because the Agenda Center absolutely has value, but I think there's also a benefit to having a one or two click place where people can go and get just the basics of a project. How many units, who the applicant is, how to contact the applicant, when the meetings are held. Something as simple as that, and we're working on that. So our recommendation is that the Planning Commission, deliberate on this, transmit a recommendation of approval of the proposed changes to Title 18 in consideration of the City Council's decision to repeal Chapter 2.56, along with a recommendation that staff continue to seek out innovative methods for obtaining quality public comment on applications particularly prior to a planning commission public meeting. This is a goal. We're treating this as a pilot project, so I'm not proposing to actually put this in the ordinance right now. I want to see if this works. But ultimately, our goal is not to short circuit public comment or even to short circuit the community councils, but to give them, but to still give them a forum to participate, but in a way that's independent. It will protect the city. It will protect the community councils, and will also protect the city, because there are real liability risks given the structure that we had under Chapter 2.56. We did get a recommendation from the East Millcreek Community Council. None of the other community councils responded. Do you have any questions for staff?
Thank you, Francis. Questions for staff?
I've just got one process question. So do you envision that every single item that's on a public hearing for that month would be presented at this one meeting? So you might have 5 applications that would be presented.
Yeah, we would, and not everybody's, and we wouldn't be doing presentations necessarily. So like there might be a group of us over here, there might be a group of us over here, there might be a
Okay.
group of us in another conference room talking about specific applications, taking notes.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. I was just concerned that people really wouldn't want to sit through 5
Yeah, I'm not
presentations.
imagining this to be a presentation. This is more of
Or
just
they
an
could just
opportunity.
come in and talk and.
talk.
And sounds good.
And would this be one open house for all the community councils to, you're not going to have 4 open houses, just one open house a month?
One
and
open house a
then,
month.
The community councils are noticed. If it pertains to their area, they may be inclined to
Right.
join. So,
Mhm.
okay. So it's taking what used to be 4, well, it could be depending on the application, but it could be if it was something like for the city center, we'd go to all 4.
Right.
That would all just be put into one
Mhm.
open house.
Mhm.
Okay.
And Francis, quick question for you. So we wouldn't be hearing like we have in the past from a community member on the council. We'd be hearing from a member of staff from that meeting, kind of relaying the public's comments.
That's kind of up to the community councils. They can always come and make a comment, during a public comment period for which we take on every application, right?
Okay, so they
Yeah.
could still come in and address that.
Absolutely. And if the community councils gave us a letter, a recommendation letter, or any sort of formal document, we would throw that into the staff report, and you would see that as well. Earlier this morning, we got word, kind of a joint letter that the community council sent the mayor, and I think this is what they want to do. They want to keep providing recommendations and speaking on behalf of their community, and we welcome that.
Great.
But you'll also be including comments from individuals who attend the open house. I'm thinking similar to what you provided for the 9th East Corridor study.
Right. We might just be scanning comment cards for the time being, right? I don't necessarily want to transcribe these comments, but I think there's value in at least scanning them and throwing them into the record.
And you mentioned that you don't want to codify this now, but if this works out, at some point, will this be codified?
Maybe.
Maybe?
I mean, I think it's worth considering. I mean, there's value in maybe having some flexibility on our approach, but I think in the long run we would codify something. I don't know what that's going to look like at this point.
And I also think I probably would reduce the prioritization. I usually would do applicant, and then before the public comment have community council. I think it'll just be public comment. Actually, I'll ask John Brems that. So the format, I would usually, hear the presentation, then we'd hear the applicant, and then I'd ask for the community council input if they were here, and then I'd open up the public hearing. With this change, it sounds like I skipped
Yeah,
that part.
you
of
won't get comment from the community council.
I mean, if they bring comment, it would just be part of the
public
hearing.
hearing. Right.
Yeah. Oh, and welcome, Council Member Handy, to the Planning Commission meeting. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, yeah. It usually is, there's more going on than this. We only have one thing on the application, there's nobody here, so. Yeah. Yeah.
I have one other question. It's a little outside the purview of the Planning Commission, but I'm sort of curious. Will the city be making any effort to sort of encourage the community councils to look broader and think broader about community action than they've had sort of a narrow focus, but my understanding is that they could have a broader focus, and maybe the city has no role in that. I don't know. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
So in her letter to the community councils, the mayor did mention that the independence of the community councils does provide opportunities for them to do different things and to continue doing the things that are not planning but that they do really well with. Yes, we would encourage that. We've already let the community councils know that, if they have a project that they need funding for, there's a process that they can go to the city council and request that funding, just like any other organization does. And we do that several times a year, where we'll give grants of public money to organizations for projects that benefit the community. We do that all the time, and we encourage the community councils to continue doing that. Also, I know there was a concern, this is related. There's a concern about indemnification and insurance, because as volunteers of the city, right, they were subject to, or they were effectively indemnified that way. Now that that's going away, there's nothing stopping a community council from coming to the city council and saying, can we have a grant of public money to help us pay for administrative overhead, website, whatever. And I think, I can't speak for the city council, but I think they would take that into advisement, given the community council's long history that predates the city of being engaged in our community. Long answer to a short question, sorry.
Any other questions? And then for clarification, Francis, on this, the Planning Commission's role is a motion of a recommendation for the
Correct.
City Council, right?
Because it's an ordinance amendment, right? The city council is the final arbiter of that determination, but they need to get a recommendation from you. I drafted model language that you could construct if you wish, or you can kind of come up with your own.
Okay. Well, for the sake of process, I will open the public hearing for comments on this. And I'll check. I don't think any emails have come through.
I haven't
then-
gotten any emails. Have you, Elise? No? Okay.
What about anything online right now? No live stream comments? And I'll close the public hearing for this application and bring it back to the commission for discussion and a motion. And I appreciate the work that's gone into this. To me, it makes complete sense. I like that there's still that conduit for input, but it reduces the staff time, and we can still get the opinions. I feel like we still get the information we need. We're just doing it a lot more efficient. And plus, we're more compliant now, or we are compliant with the state law.
Yeah, my understanding is that the community councils are going to revert back to what they were prior to Millcreek being incorporated as a city. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your thoughts or a motion, Mr. Vice Chair?
I can move. I'm teasing. No, I don't think, unless there's more discussion, I'm happy to make a motion. I move that the Planning Commission transmit a recommendation of approval of the proposed changes to Title 18 in consideration of the City Council's decision to repeal Chapter 2.56 of the Millcreek Code of Ordinances, along with recommendation that staff continue to seek out innovative methods of obtaining quality public comment on applications, particularly prior to a Planning Commission public meeting.
A motion by Larson.
Second?
Okay, and we got a second by Richardson. All in favor say yes or aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, that recommendation passes. And hi, we're this Millcreek Planning Commission meeting for January. Is that the meeting you're looking for? Oh.
Can you give me a moment? I can probably brief her on that.
Okay, sure. And then we've got, oh, wow. Yes, John Brems, Open Public Meetings Act Annual Training. Okay.
Did too few of us do this online last year?
Yes, you have to do it every year.
I know. I mean, John Brems didn't have to get up in front of us last year.
You're right, but there were few items on the agenda tonight, so we thought we'd just knock it out.
Good point.
This is your annual training. So Utah law requires the presiding officer, which would be Sean Lamar, to ensure that members of the public body are trained yearly. And that's what this is the yearly training. As part of the Open Meetings Act, the legislature established a public policy that says that cities shall take their action openly and conduct deliberations openly. And that results in the general rule that all meetings are open to the public unless closed under specific circumstances. And there really are no specific circumstances that the Planning Commission is involved in that would close it. But as part of this, I'll go through what those closed meeting provisions are. And this is critical. What is a meeting? That's probably the key factor. A meeting is defined as a gathering of a public body with a quorum. In this case, it should have been 5 instead of 4. Present by an individual with authority to convene the meeting for the purposes of receiving public comment on relevant matters, deliberating about relevant matters, or taking action upon relevant matters. So they amended this last year. And remember, you probably in your last training, I told you or someone told you that a social or a chance meeting was not part of a meeting. That was taken out. So that is not there, but they changed the definition of meeting. So basically, if it's a chance meeting or a social meeting, not called by the chair, where these things are discussed, it's okay. It's a different way of getting at the issue.
And it also seems like it would have to be for the purpose of receiving public comment on irrelevant. So if we had some off-site touring of something and it wasn't relevant to it didn't meet that criteria, I don't think it
I would agree. In fact,
right?
what is relevant?
Yeah.
Relevant matter means a matter that is within the scope of the authority of the public body. So if you guys want to get together for a Super Bowl party and talk about football, you can. Because you don't have that's not within the scope of your authority. But if you wanted to get together and talk about a conditional use, it's probably a meeting.
Super Bowl party at my house.
Okay. They added this provision too, that a public body may not act together outside a meeting in a concerted and deliberate way to predetermine an action taken by a public body. And then we can thank San Juan County Commission for this. There were 3 commissioners, and 2 of them would get together over breakfast or over lunch and decide what they wanted to do. And then when it came to the meeting, there was no discussion. It was all predetermined. So they added this provision. When I say they, I mean the legislature. Now there's some special rules for the Planning Commission that are adopted by ordinance, which are not in the state statute. And it's this: no member of the commission shall have an ex parte communication regarding any administrative or rezoning land use application before the commission. So then I put in what I thought was the best definition of an ex parte communication. Means any communication that concerns the merits of the matter, including but not limited to electronic or social media communications with an interested party of an administrative or rezoned land use application coming before the commission prior to the commission reaching its decision. So after the decision, you can have discussion with applicants, so to speak, because it's not ex parte. Before, if it's on the agenda or coming down the road, it's ex parte communication. Now, the concern here is an interested party. And let's take a look at what that is. An interested party is a party that is the party to the proceeding, the applicant, or other persons who might be affected by the outcome. And I take that probably to mean almost the general public, because if you put this preschool next to me, it's going to affect me. If you think of the purpose for the ex parte rule, that will help you understand when you're involved in ex parte communications. And the purpose of the ex parte communication rule is to ensure that all interested parties have equal opportunity to participate in the decision making and to maintain the integrity of the proceedings. So if you think about that when you're talking to someone about a land use issue, that will help you understand what an ex parte communication is. Now that's by our ordinance, not by state statute. And I'll get into a couple of examples there that.
I've got a question there. So
Sure.
if we went to one of these new public hearing kinds of things, or they're not public hearings, whatever these open houses, yeah. And so if we're chatting casually with one of the applicants or a neighbor of an applicant, then that would fall under ex parte, is that correct?
Can we hold that until I get to a couple of my examples? And then the one that's just not intuitive, because you would think you can't talk electronically, but this one says you can. Nothing in this chapter shall be construed to restrict a member of the public body, in this case the Planning Commission, from transmitting an electronic message to other members of the public body at a time when the public body is not convened in an open meeting. So if you're in a meeting saying, oh, how are you going to vote? That probably is in violation. But if you're outside of a meeting, you can probably have an electronic meeting. But intuitively, doesn't that seem to violate the general rule? But that's what the statute says. There's some conflict, and
So you can't sit over breakfast and talk about it, but you can chat about the same
Yeah,
thing.
makes
is
no
what it
sense,
says.
does it?
No, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But that's not the first time
Yeah.
legislation doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
the requirements of the Open Meeting Act is you have to have 24-hour advance notice of the meeting. You have to have give notice of the annual meeting, and Elise does that. You've already done that, and the City Council has also done that. Notice requires a meeting date, time, agenda, and place of the meeting. Those are all on the agendas if you want to look at it. And the notice must be specific enough to notify the public of the topic to be discussed. Now, what happens if something comes in front of you that's not on the agenda? And the council chair may, in his or her discretion, discuss a topic raised by the public that is not on the agenda, provided the council or the Planning Commission does not take a final action on the topic unless it is properly noticed. So you can listen to the public and say, oh, thank you, let's put this on the agenda. But you can't make decisions on it. And as I read that, you guys can't bring it up yourself. It has to be brought up by the public.
Is that state or local? Or
That's state statute. That's not our rule. State statute. Then it requires written minutes and recorded minutes to be kept of all open meetings. And written minutes are the official record of the action taken at the meeting. So if you had a recording that says A, but the written minutes say B, which one wins? Well, by the statute, it's B. It's the written minutes. Now, whether at the end of the day, if a court would recognize that, I don't know. Never tried that in litigation. Hope never to have to try that in litigation, but that's what the statute says. And closed meetings can only be held for a specific purpose, and that's to discuss the professional character, competency, and mental health of an individual, discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation, discuss regarding purchase or sale, exchange of real property, or purchase and sale of real property. And the Planning Commission can, if they're acting in a judicial or quasi-judicial capacity, that was created by a case. Years ago, planning commissions would hear sometimes appeals to conditional uses. And they could then go into their back room and deliberate. That was okay, but you don't hear any appeals So it's there, but I don't see any reason you never ever need to go into a closed meeting. Minutes that are recorded are protected records under grandma if they're of a closed meeting. And records do not need to be made of a closed meeting if it's exclusively to discuss the character, professional competency, or physical or mental health of an individual. But the statute requires the chair to sign an affidavit that that was the only thing that was discussed. All right, let's talk about some case studies, and hopefully we can answer your question, Victoria. Okay, 4 planning commissioners have been properly trained to shop local and run into each other at the local Smith store, and one of the commissioners starts discussing a request for conditional use. I said 4 here. But it's not a meeting. What if it's 5? Let's say it's 5 now. Well,
Then
let's see.
you can't discuss.
You may, but be careful that you're not predetermining how you're going to vote. Or you can just continue shopping and walk away. But you may not discuss the matter and predetermine the action to be taken. Case study number 2. While you're attending your local worship service, you are approached by a constituent who wants to discuss your position and vote on the proposed new daycare in his neighborhood. And it's a conditional use matter on the commission agenda. Good or bad? What do you do?
You can't do it because that would be ex parte.
Well, in the yes and no. Under the statute, it's okay. It's deemed appropriate. But under the Planning Commission rules, it's ex parte communication. So what do? Continue your worship or walk away, or suggest not the time to talk about this. Ever. Till it's done. Okay, social media dilemma. While you're perusing your favorite social media site, you encounter a post about a daycare with a pending conditional use application. The post contains some obvious misinformation that you consider outrageous and intentionally misrepresentation. Now, you never see that on a media post or social media, so this is fictional, of course. Open meeting, it's not clear because that electronic message component steps in, but our PC rules require you to close the post. It would be an ex parte communication.
I'd like to dive into that a little bit more because if it, I think it would be appropriate if it's not an opinion, but if it's simply saying, here's a link to the packet that discusses information, it's simply informational. I think that's completely appropriate to do. And I don't see that being in violation of ex parte.
So if we go back to the definition of ex parte.
Yeah.
See if I can find it here. Nope, I went too far.
I think it's after this.
Okay, ex parte means a communication that concerns the merits,
Right, the
of the
merits.
merits. So if you're just talking
Right.
generalities, it's not the
Yeah,
merits.
if I'm not taking like, oh yeah, this is a really bad thing because, but, and because I've done this in the past where I'll like, here's some additional information, like the Porsche dealership, people
And
are like, sky's gonna fall, but, and there's misinformation. So I would just, no merits, like here's where you can find more, here's the illustration. And I went on about my way.
That would be absolutely appropriate.
Yeah.
Because you're not discussing the merits of the matter.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Let's see.
It's just cat videos though on social media.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're a diligent member of the commission and you visit a property with a pending conditional use application before the commission. Open meetings, no violation. PC, no violation. Best practices, probably explain what you observed to the Planning Commission at the open meeting, so they can take advantage of what you discovered on your visit. Let's change this one a little bit. While you're inspecting the property, the owner approaches you and wants to discuss the conditional use application. It's not a violation of open meetings law, but it's a violation of our PC rules because it's an ex parte communication. Best practice, recommend that it's not an appropriate forum to discuss the matter and walk away.
And then diving into that a little bit, because I have done a few site visits in the past, and the owner was there, and I told him why I was there. And I let him know, like, I can't discuss, I just have some informational questions, and he was very agreeable to that. I said we have to discuss about, the merits in the open meeting, but just to gather information, I felt that was appropriate because there was no discussion on the merits.
As long as you're not discussing the merits.
Yeah.
And the real question will be is, what does that mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I look at it as like if it was good or bad, or if he was saying like, so what do you think? Is this a good thing? You think the commission? That would be like, I simply, and I let him know we can't discuss. I think I probably said merits, but I said, I want to. There's some just information like, hey, so what's the distance between the back of this garage and the fence? Do you know that?
That's factual information.
Factual stuff, and then I disclosed that in the meeting. Hey, I went out to Joe's house, talked to him. This is what I found. So then everybody here knows.
Took advantage of what you
that,
learned.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is your obligation in that case? I would suggest you disclose in a commission meeting the ex parte communication if that individual approached you. You can never disclose enough if there's a potential conflict. Put it out there because you don't have to recluse yourself. You just have to evidence that you've been involved in that. And depending upon what you heard, you might consider reclusing yourself. Don't have to. And if you do recuse yourself, if I'm here, I'll make sure that on the record that I'll say Sean Lamar has left the dais and the room, because it's not video. It's all recorded. So. Okay. You are approached by a fellow, and I think this may answer your question, Victoria. You're approached by a fellow member of the PC regarding a pending conditional use application. Can you talk to him? There's no violation unless it's a meeting, and it wouldn't be a meeting unless it's called by the chair, and it's to discuss, and you have a quorum. So it's not a meeting. It's not a violation of our PC rules. Best practices, discuss, but don't commit up to a position or a vote, because then you start to run into that predetermination. But if there's only two of you, probably no big deal. If it gets to 4 or 5, I wouldn't talk too much about it as a predetermination. Okay, what about talking to staff? You're confused by a staff report, which never happens, of course, and you call the staff for clarification. Is it a problem? It's not a violation of the Open Meetings Act unless it is a meeting, and it's probably not a meeting. No violation of the PC rules. Discuss and best practices, discuss the clarification with the PC at the PC meeting. If you had a question, they probably had the same question, and you can help them understand that. Okay, how about discussion with the applicant? You are approached by a person who has a conditional use application pending who asked the time of the meeting. Is that okay? No violation unless it's a meeting. No violation because it does not involve the merits of the application. You're just providing them information. This is the time of the meeting. You've been trained.
Thank you, Mr. Brems.
Any questions that I maybe can't answer?
I do. I'm coming from sort of a different perspective and a different background, and I'm just wondering what the genesis of the whole ex parte rules is. Is this something that all of the cities in the state tend to have as rules for their planning commission, because they are different than the rules for the city council. And I've operated in a system where we did not have those rules for the planning commission. I actually felt like it opened up, it put more trust in the planning commissioners, but it also allowed more awareness, a deeper understanding of applications, because you could talk to people more.
Yeah, so let's go back to the ex parte analysis.
And I do see you easing it a bit from what it has been in previous years. I mean, there's a little bit more leeway given to us. But I back up first to my question about where did this come from? Is this a general thing in Utah, or is this specific to Millcreek, the ex parte rules?
I know other cities that I represent have the same ex parte communication, because that's what I put in the PC rules, because it has a valid purpose. If you think of a judge, and a judge is deciding on the case, it would be unfair to let one person talk to the judge and not have the other person talk to the judge. And the judge may say, well, I can evaluate that, but as a bright line, no discussion by either party with the judge. That would be an ex parte communication. And that's what the city council decided. That's probably a lot of doing with Jeff back in the original mayor. He's an attorney, and he thought this was a good idea too.
But the rules aren't the same for the city council.
The rules are not the same for
So
the city council,
is
because the
allowed
city
to get-
council is a legislative branch. You're more of an administrative branch. And the legislative branch can make decisions based upon public clamor. You can't.
Could you go to the next slide on this? Because I kind of raise an interested party as a privacy or other persons who might be affected. I think maybe we want to, this point to me is always seemed a little odd, because I think there's a lot of subjectivity, like other persons who might be. To me, that's not very defined.
You
Like
have
might,
no
that
idea
could
who might be interested.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so to me that's very, very fuzzy, and this sounds like this may be something we need to take up with city council, like what we're trying to do and revise this. I've always had a concern with that bullet point, like the might part. Like, I don't know who might be, and that really seems like that, since it's not defined well, there could be communication that could happen, but doesn't because of the worry that they might be. So to me, that's very vague. So
Yeah, and it's probably intentionally vague, because
Well,
if
okay.
you step back and think, okay, a judge, what if somebody's third cousin, once removed, wants to talk to the judge about it? They're certainly affected. They might be affected, but I don't know. I'd have to give that some real thought of how to define what it means to be an affected person.
yeah, the fact, because I look at it as I think the intent is to make sure that the discussions and the information that we're making our decisions are in a public setting, and it's noticed so people know when it's happening. So if I go out and do a site visit, I get some information, I let the commission and the public know this is what I have. So having like an interested party, I'm like, this seems like you can't talk about it, but I'm like, but if I disclose it, I feel like there's two different things. If we're going after the purpose of information, so everybody has a fair shot, if there was some ex parte, I would disclose that. And that's where this bullet point feels like it doesn't really fit, because it says anybody that might be affected by the outcome. Well, anybody could say they were slightly affected. How do you even define affected? How much affected? And also the might. And since it is intentionally, if it's intentionally vague, to me it feels like then let's get rid of this thing. Or I don't think it would really have much standing because it is so vague. It probably is not realistically enforceable at all.
Yeah, well, it's a standard. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to ask the planning or the city council to take a look at these rules, we can do that.
Yeah. Because I do feel like there's a little bit of contradiction between this and then also disclosing an ex parte. I do a site visit, but if I do the site visit, I feel like this is the other side. Like somebody could say, hey, I didn't like that. And Sean went out and talked to the guy and got some information and I disclosed it, but they're upset because they are affected or they feel like they're affected. now I'm in violation, so I feel like it's both
But it
ways.
doesn't involve the merits. So when you got that information, it's probably not the merits.
Yeah. I
And
think
maybe
the
you have to
merits
think
is
about
the-
this as defining that as part of the merits.
The merits, yeah. It's something maybe I'll consider looking at, and we can talk as a commission another time about, like, does this fit in? To me, it's always
Yeah.
been, and if it's intentionally vague, my recommendation personally is like get rid of it. Let's not have vague things. Let's have
Understood.
understandable things.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But it's there to be vague, you know. It's like a speed limit, you know. What is really
Well,
the
but the
speed
speed
limit?
limit is, it's not like, yeah, it's between here and here, and we'll decide.
Yeah, but you don't always go 9 over, but you can't go 10.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Any
Thank you.
questions?
We've been
All right.
trained.
Yeah.
And on the agenda, we now have approval of the December 17th regular meeting minutes. And again, always thanks to Elise for putting those minutes together last year, or at least from last year.
Yes, in the first motion, it says specified date. Please change that to unspecified date. And with that, I move that we approve the minutes for December 17th.
Second.
Motion by Larson, second by Ian Wright. All in favor, say yes or aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yes. Anybody opposed? Motion for the meeting minutes passes. And Jacob, Housing Subcommittee report.
Yeah, I can give a quick update on that. So prior to our planning commission meeting this evening, the housing subcommittee met, and at a high level, we discussed the expanding housing choices that Durham, North Carolina initiated back in 2019. We talked about the Salt Lake City's expanding housing choices, which is based on that same policy. And we talked about some of the pros and the cons, public noticing, public support. And at the end of the meeting, staff agreed to evaluate the current code after all of these recent zoning changes and see how that compares to what Salt Lake City is proposing in their expanding housing choices. And so this would be looking at allowing small lot dwellings throughout the city and potentially allowing for duplexes and triplexes. So I'll report back on that. And then otherwise, I met with the lead organizer of SOS Eastwood, who is a group of parents that organize in response to Eastwood potentially being closed. And she gave her rough support or initial support. I told her I would come back with something once we had a publicly available document. And she said she'd be willing to share that with her network through SOS Eastwood. And in the future, I'll be meeting with Michelle Jones, who is the president of the Granite Education Association, and that's the union that represents the teachers, talking about how school closures obviously impact teacher jobs, and then additionally, expanding housing options would allow for teachers to live in the communities that they also teach in. And then I'll also be meeting with Christy Parajuli, who is the liaison for the Millcreek Youth Council. And so their mission is directly related to education for K through 12 for students here in Millcreek. So I think the fact that we're experiencing school closures is directly tied to their mission. And so I'm going to try and tie that into housing, and we're going to meet and see how the Youth Council could potentially participate in this. And so that's it, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, wow, that's impressive. But I'm just wondering, do you have like not a huge thing that explains the Durham housing policy? I'd be really interested in reading about it. You're just allowed to send me something.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Reed. I appreciate that opportunity. I will provide the whole commission with the documents that I provided the housing subcommittee, just so everyone can get an overview of what Durham passed, the results, and what Salt Lake City is doing. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I would love to see that as well. Read that. Thank you. And Francis, updates from you.
Yeah, just a few things. Thing number one, the item that came to you last month, the Laurel rezone. Just to give you a heads up, they may or may not be coming back. They're looking at an alternative path to compliance, essentially reverting to what they had, and they're in the crosshairs of the administrative law judge on that matter. So I'll just keep you apprised about what the status of that application is.
Why do they want to go back?
I don't know. Well, I mean, I think I can surmise that it's probably a business decision on their part because I don't think they can get the parking that is required for their change of use. But it would require unwinding a number of decisions that they made. It's not easy for them to do that. But
When you say in the crosshairs,
yeah, so the Laurel is subject to an ongoing code enforcement case.
because of the age?
Well,
limits?
because they don't have a business license, right?
Oh.
And they can't get a business license unless they get a rezone.
Okay.
And they can't get a rezone unless they resolve all these parking issues, because it's also a change of use. And so, they got just ahead of themselves, right? What makes this a little tricky is that there are vulnerable people living there. And, the city will have to be kind of compassionate in working toward compliance, especially given that some of those people are there. They probably couldn't be there if the Laurel reverts back to its previous use as an assisted living facility.
I see.
That's what's complicated, right? So,
Thank you.
but it may be easier than finding additional parking, ironically.
Right.
So it would potentially just revert
Yeah.
back.
And I'll keep you posted. I'll let you know what their final decision is. But I know that a number of people were wondering, like, well, what happened to this application that they said they were going to come back? Well, that's why they didn't come back. Thing number two, the Planning Commission agenda for February may be heavy. I don't know yet, but it may be heavy. And I wanted to gauge your willingness to do a second meeting on the 25th.
I'll do anything for Crown Burger.
Will you do anything for a Crown Burger? Are you saying you want us to?
Unfortunately, I will be out of the country both the 18th and 25th.
Okay.
I apologize.
I'm just checking my calendar now, and we'd be looking at the 18th and then the 25th.
Traditionally, like if we've had an overflow, we just moved it to the next Wednesday.
Yeah.
I can do the 18th, but I have a presentation in Park City on the next week.
18th.
I can do the 18th and the 25th.
Yeah, I think I should be able to do that.
But it seems like we may need other commissioners to weigh in on whether or not they might be able to attend both, so we have quorum.
Right.
24th?
24th would work for me as well.
I can do the 24th.
Same.
Yeah.
Christian. You'll be jet setting.
24th ideally is a little better for me, but I can do either one.
Okay.
I may have my little buddy with me for an hour in the windowsill.
It may not need to happen, but
Yeah.
I have those options if,
Okay.
if we need to. Okay. So thing number 3, the mayor is going to nominate Jenny Burgess to fill Commissioner Vance's seat. Ms. Burgess is of course, a Millcreek resident. She lives over by St. Mark's Hospital. She's also a licensed realtor and a grants manager for Salt Lake Community College, and runs a family right here in Millcreek too. So that's kind of cool. I think that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. And I participated, I think, in all the interviews, right, Francis?
Yes.
Yeah. And we had really good applicants. I mean, there wasn't anybody that wouldn't be a good fit, but some, she was definitely on my short list as well. You know, there were some really strong applicants, so that was good to see that people came forward and are interested in it.
And are we just down one person?
Pardon me?
Yes.
Are we just down
Yeah,
one?
yeah, it's just for Dwayne Vance. Yeah. So I think she will be a great addition to our commission. So, thank you.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
We're making some interesting progress on public art here in Millcreek. So a couple initiatives that are tangential to you, and Commissioner Reed has been involved in these a little bit as well. Number one, we've issued a call for artists for public art on this blank wall over here and on the concrete wing wall just behind us. And we had 126 responses.
Wow.
So we're reviewing those. We're really excited about that. We also got 10 responses for a arts and culture master plan. It's not really a planning document that per se that would be adopted, but it's really a document that goes into what sort of policy framework do we need to establish to promote art in Mill Creek? Do we need to buy? Do we need to buy or plan for capital facilities? How do we create an arts policy board? How do we vet art? What sort of processes can we do? And we're really excited about that too. So just to kind of let you know what else of the things that are happening in our department. So
Great, thank you. Commissioners, anything to bring up? Nothing? All right. Who would like to do I'm going to nominate Vice Chair Larson to make our motion to.
I've made all the motions tonight.
Yeah, to adjourn the meeting.
Do it.
I move that we adjourn.
All in favor, say yes or aye.
Aye.
Yes. Anybody opposed?